Chapter 7, Left Behind. Sai's stern face stared at us from inside of his helmet. Past the dune, I could see the lights of the yellow submarine. Ileana was at the wheel. "They found us!" I cried. "Sai!" Trey shouted. "See, I told you," Flossie said. "If I'd have known, I would have held it in," Vera muttered. After quickly assessing my injury, Sai helped me into the yellow submarine. Everyone else piled in after me. The rover was quiet as we headed for home. "I don't know what you children were thinking," Sai said in a horribly calm voice. It was somehow worse that he wasn't shouting at us. "We didn't mean to," Trey began. Sai cut him off. "You didn't mean to steal the rover?" Trey flinched. "How did you find us?" Vera asked. "There's a tracking device on all the rovers," Ileana explained. "We put them on after Lissa died in a rover accident," Sai added. "She did?" Flossie asked, shocked. I didn't know that. It was news to me, too. In fact, the only thing I knew about Lissa was that she had been a nanny. But dying in a rover accident? That was the one secret the grown-ups had actually managed to keep on Mars. "Well, now you know," Sai said. "If we hadn't found you, you could have died in one, too." No one said anything after that. "You fractured your clavicle," Memes told me, studying the handheld X-ray device. "That's your collarbone." I was lying on the examination table in the small medical bay. The room had all sorts of diagnostic equipment and cabinets with medical supplies. It smelled of antiseptic cleanser and was my least favorite part of the settlement. Nothing good ever happened here. This was where you got shots and had your cavities filled. "And I'm concerned that you may have a concussion, too," she said. "What's that mean?" "It means that your brains got rattled around. I'll be waking you up every few hours tonight to make sure that you're okay," she said. "It's going to be a long night for both of us." "Sorry," I said. "All right, I need to put a sling on your arm to keep it immobilized. It's going to hurt a little." A little? By the time she was finished, I was panting from the pain. "How is your pain level from 1 to 10? She asked me, with 10 being the worst. 100! She opened a cabinet and surveyed a shelf. I probably should have ordered more painkillers for the supply ship. The door opened and Phineas walked in, fear crossing his face when he saw me. "How bad?" he demanded. "A fractured collarbone, maybe a concussion," Memes said. Phineas put his hands on my cheeks. He looked like he'd been crying. His eyes were red and puffy. "I swear you took 5 years off my life," he scolded. "Sorry," I whispered. I seemed to be saying that a lot. "What were you doing?" "We just wanted to see the alien ship." "There is no alien ship," he said, and he added softly, "and you could have died." I'd never heard him sound more disappointed in me. "Sai said Lissa died in a rover accident. What happened?" Memes and Phineas exchanged a long look. It was like they were having an entire conversation without saying a word. Finally, Phineas sat down with a groan. "You're having pain again?" Memes asked him. He nodded. "Do you want something for it?" Phineas waved her off. "It's nothing I can't handle." "You're so stubborn," Memes said, shaking her head. "Not as stubborn as some," he said, turning to me. "All right, where to begin?" Phineas smoothed his hands over the top of his cane. "You know that during the early years of the settlement, we collaborated with the other countries?" he asked me. I nodded. Everyone knew that. It was very collegial. The railway was a joint project between all the countries. It was an incredible achievement for engineering, but even more so for cooperation. We joked that such a project would never have happened on Earth because of all the red tape. "What's red tape?" I asked. "Regulations and rules and all sorts of nonsense that gets in the way of progress," he said. "We have rules here on Mars, though," I said. "Yes, and I've noticed that you're not very good at following them," he pointed out. Whoops, he was right about that. Well, after several years, relations between various countries on Earth started to deteriorate. Countries began fighting over mineral deposits discovered in Antarctica. But here on Mars, things were fine. We were in our own little bubble. And then Lissa died. "What happened?" I asked. Lissa had gone out in a rover with 2 other people, one French, one Russian. It was an accident, and she didn't make it back, he said, his eyes sad. Why? I asked. A voice behind me said, because they left her behind. I looked up, startled to see Cy in the doorway. His face was shuttered and cold. Lissa was injured, and they left her there to die. Phineas sighed and looked down, squeezing his cane. Now you know why we have no contact with the other settlements, Cy said. Memes helped me into my bed. I couldn't lie down because of the sling, so she propped me up with pillows, but I was asleep before she even turned out the light. I dreamt that I was back in the overturned rover, but it was different this time. It was scarier somehow. I looked at the seat next to mine. Trey was gone. But where? I looked at the driver's seat. It was empty too, and so was the one next to it. Trey? Flossie? Vera? Where are you? No one answered. Then I heard the rumble of a rover. I plastered my face to the window and saw the yellow submarine driving away. Without me. Wait! I shouted, banging on the window. Don't leave me! But the rover kept driving, leaving me behind. Just like Lissa. Alone. I woke up with a shout, my heart pounding. Albie's light clicked on, and he was out of bed and by my side. Belle, he asked anxiously, are you in pain? Are you okay? No! You're not in pain? He asked, confused. I'm not okay! Then the terror and stress of the day caught up to me, and I burst into tears. It's okay, Albie said, handing me a tissue. You're safe now. You're back. It was so scary, I whispered. Yeah, he said. I can imagine. Do you want me to get memes? No, I said. She'll be here in another hour to wake me up to check my head. Albie got back in bed and reached to turn off the light. Can you leave it on? I asked. Sure, he said. I looked around the room, seeing all of the familiar things. Albie's cap, the drawings on the wall, Leo at my feet, and it calmed me until I could finally breathe again. Phineas told me what happened to Lissa, I said, and explained what I'd learned. It makes sense now, he said. Well, what makes sense? That the grown-ups were all so angry when Lissa died. I didn't understand why, he said, shaking his head. How could they just leave her? I don't know, I said. Albie gave a low whistle. No wonder we aren't allowed to have contact with the other countries. I stared at the ceiling, remembering the terror. It wasn't until Albie's snores filled the air that I felt safe enough to fall asleep again.